3 years ago today, on May 25th, 2020, the Minneapolis Police Department murdered George Floyd on 38th in Chicago, which is now George Floyd Square. And throughout the 3 years that have transpired since then, a lot has changed in the city of Minneapolis, where I live. And on that day, it was a Memorial Day, and we weren't quite sure, I wasn't quite sure what had happened. And the video started to circulate. And at the time, I was slated to do a show called News from Scratch with PBS Digital Studios. And I had just wrapped up the second season of America from Scratch with PBS Digital Studios, and we were set to do News from Scratch. And that Tuesday, I got word of what had happened. And this had been repeating itself throughout Minneapolis for some time. Jamar Clark, Philando Castile, Terrence Franklin, the list goes on. And some of the names were more headlined than others, and that was for certain reasons why some of the police brutality incidents made headlines and some didn't. They were swept under the rug and really kind of just held in the shadows. However, this one was one that wasn't going to be put away or hidden in any way whatsoever. And it's important to note that Minnesota at that time, and I believe at this time, ranks amongst the highest in the nation for racial disparity in law enforcement, in employment, and education. And so you already have a state that is leading the country in racial disparity. So and now you have this incident with the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin and 3 other police officers. And the idea was that what had transpired that next week was something that I could have never planned on. And I'm saying this in hopes that my story can help maybe archive or assist or support you in what that meant to you. And the thing that I'll repeat throughout this video is that in media, in storytelling, in film, it is as important what you say as what you don't say. And what people leave out is as important as what they put in, and sometimes even more important than what they say. And Tuesday had came, the day after George Floyd was murdered, and I didn't watch the video, but I heard what had happened. And Wednesday then happened, and as it ramped up, things kept getting bigger. The protests kept getting larger, and then that Wednesday, I believe, the 3rd precinct was burned down. And when you have a gesture like that, it's not a question anymore. It's not even a demand. It's a, this is happening. This is the sentiment of how people feel about what went down. And from there, Thursday, Friday, Saturday occurred, and the company that I was slated to work with, PBSDS, didn't really say anything about what was going on. Black men had just been publicly lynched in Minneapolis, in the heart of Minneapolis, and Twin Cities Public Television wasn't saying anything, and this is right next to them. And for me, it was baffling at what was going on, and I'd already had a few incidents with TPT and PBSDS that were involving race and the censorship of it that had really reverberated with me, and I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to be around the company anymore. And that Sunday, I felt called to speak at the Capitol while we were there, and I was sitting there watching everybody speak, and Monique was up there leading the protest, or leading the speeches, and then I somehow just felt called to speak, and I texted somebody who was organizing the protest. I said, I'd really like to speak, and she said, well, go up there and ask for this person. So I went up and I asked for a certain person, and then in the middle of that, Kim Handy Jones was speaking. Now, if you've ever heard Kim Handy Jones speak, I don't really have any words for it. She's one of the most prolific, just most powerful speakers I've ever heard in my life. And you couldn't really turn away from it or not listen to it. And the National Guard that was standing on the steps with tanks and Humvees and choppers in the sky, I felt bad for them. I felt bad for them. I felt the odds were against them with Kim Handy Jones speaking. And she's the mother of Cordell Handy, who was killed by the St. Paul Police Department. And so the sentiment from which she speaks, the emotion from which she speaks it's it's just something else. And then I could go into an entirely different video about that, but she was speaking. And I'm standing there watching Kim Handy Jones speak, and I'm like, do I really want to speak now? And the answer within me was yes. And so I got up and I spoke. And I said a short speech, and I referenced June 14th, 1920, when 3 black men were hung to an all-white crowd in Duluth over accusations, false accusations. And it is 100 years later. Here we are doing the same thing, talking about the same thing. And I walked off and we marched on the highway, and the semi came the other direction, and that was that. And I believe later that night or the next day, I had a talk with a producer from my work that I was slated to be a part of. And they said, well, we have to check, we have to get you cleared to see if it's okay that you can be part of this project due to your activism. And I said, well, is it because I've been doing videos out in the field questioning, the media response to this? And they said, no, you speaking at the Capitol. And this is the moment right here that I hope can help you, because there's a point where if something is a question, then I already know the answer. So if me being black and speaking out against state-sanctioned violence is a problem or a question, then I don't want to be a part of it. And the person on the other line was like, no, we need to sit down and have a meeting about it. And I said, no, I'm fine. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have anything to do with PBSDS or Twin Cities Public Television, none of it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people there that are possibly have, they're well-intended people. It was just the institution to me at that time was not willing or capable to have a conversation about black leadership or black voices. And all of the work that I had done with them up until then, none of it had been me writing anything. It was just my black face and body just saying the words for a show that somebody else wrote. And so there was no autonomy in that at all. There was no agency in that for me as a black person in a white space, a white media group. And I had never had a knowing like that really click in me before. And I knew right then and there, I was like, no, I don't want to be a part of this. And they were like, well, we just need to have a meeting. And I said, I'm probably going to be speaking a lot more times, and I'm not going to ever not speak again. And so if for me to be a part of this is my speaking at rallies or protests or anywhere advocating for black people or families that have been affected by police violence is a question, then I don't want to be a part of it. And to span out, the idea is that a lot of people had those conversations, and whether they were in public, whether they were speaking in DC, whether they were taking down an old statue in London, whether it was something at the Capitol in St. Paul, or whether it was just over DMs, over social media, or like a private message, or just a phone call between you and a family member. A lot of people had these conversations. And on the other end, a lot of people didn't. And I said in the beginning, in storytelling, in media, in any kind of information that's exchanged between people, any kind of communication that's happening, it is as important for what's said as what's not said. And I hope that these past 3 years, if a lot has not been said, that you've been able to at least be cognizant of that and pay attention to that and be aware of that. And maybe at certain points, investigate why. Why isn't that institution speaking on that? Or why did they never say anything about that when that happened? Or why did this giant international movement happen and nothing was said by this person or this company or these people or my friends or my family? And it's not, I'm not here to say, well, you need to go ask them and figure out or why they said that. My support to you or my challenge to you is to just think about it. Because when we start engaging with the absence of what people are talking about, when we start engaging with what's not being said, then I feel that we can really begin to navigate the community that we're in and the support that it may need. and the help that it may need, and then we can really start to be of better service to the people around us. So that is what has gone down over the past 3 years. A lot has, and I'm saying this in footnotes, and very, abbreviating a lot of it. And it has been a lot, and I know it's been a lot for a lot of people. And this is just my story from my end. And I know that I usually do shorter videos, and you get information that's really quick. But there's a larger conversation to be had, a larger conversation to be continued, and there's something extremely powerful and really paramount to speak on the angelversary of George Floyd today, May 25th, 2023. And I hope that you're able to navigate those conversations, or the lack thereof them, as best you can, because not everybody's having them. And that's for a reason. And it's in no judgment of the people that aren't having it or are having it. It's just to say, what can we do in being aware of the absence or the presence of those conversations? So I hope this helped you out. I hope that you're able to give yourself some grace, take some time to breathe, and really just be of service to yourself and to your community. All right, we'll see you in the next video.